Adam Moss is here. He is editor-in-chief of New York Magazine. This year, it received 5 National Magazine Awards, including one for general excellence. Since taking control of New York in 2004, he has reinvigorated the magazine. I am pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome. We have fought. This show is just charting your career. So whenever you do new things, we like it, you know.
I appreciate
so we
that.
can see. You know, we did this with New York Magazine. You know, I own, just for the matter of record, everybody raves about 7 days.
7 days.
It was your creation. You're a baby. It lasted for 2 years.
2 years.
You know,
1988 to 1990.
readers loved it. Critics loved it.
The market didn't love it that much.
But the market didn't love it.
No.
What was that? I mean, it was just an idea of magazine history.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a great fun project. We never really had a business plan. There really wasn't a place. In fact, what it was a magazine that was meant to get between the Village Voice, which at the time was a very powerful magazine out there,
Right.
a newspaper out there, and New York Magazine, which we felt was very vulnerable, and we felt we could sort of drive right through. And in fact, New York Magazine was way too powerful for us. And then we hit if you remember, 1988, the stock market crashed,
Right.
And it took us a while to catch up to that, but eventually we did.
And how different was that from what you're doing with New York Magazine? It had no service component, or
no,
did?
it had quite a bit of service. It was, it was done on the extreme cheap. I mean, it was really just we were just a bunch of children just throwing this thing together, and I think that was what was good about
Children.
it. But we were.
You were how old? 30?
I was 28, 29, 30. Yeah. And then everyone else on the staff was. I was the oldest person on the staff. Everyone else was, 21, 18, 19, and they're all, it's great because they're all running magazines now and doing fabulous things. But it was the same in that it was about New York City, and it loved New York City, and it was and there was a sense of energy about it that we try to bring to New York. But it was a different time, and therefore it was a different magazine.
So you then went to the New York Times.
I then did, yes.
And ended up as kind of culture editor of the New York Times.
Yeah, that's right. And then between then, I was the editor of the Times Magazine.
Right, which we really made your mark there in terms of creating that.
It was a great experience, yeah.
Why was it a great experience?
Well, it's a very unusual magazine in the sense that it is more or less invulnerable to the marketplace.
Sure.
And that's a great place for a journalist to be, especially these days. The marketplace is a very, nervous-making environment. But also, everything you did had the halo of the New York Times over it. And the years when I was there, the Times was very flush with money, and they were willing to invest a lot of money in it. And we really had a very different idea of what the magazine should be, and the notoriously conservative or conservative not politically, but conservative in terms of innovation, was willing to go along with it. And so those of us who were there were able to change the magazine quite a bit in all those years, in some ways that some readers liked and some readers didn't like. But it was a great gig, and I enjoyed it a lot.
So why'd you go to the New York Magazine?
New York Magazine, when I was growing up,
Craig Felker and all that?
Yeah, was first magazine that was ever in my family's house. It was
the first magazine in your family's house.
Yeah.
Now, your family was where? In Brooklyn?
No, it started in Brooklyn, then they, in Long Island,
Right.
and they, that was the magazine they got, and I, sat there while everybody else was, watching TV. I was reading, New York Magazine, and it had a vision of the world that I found thrilling, and it and Esquire, and it was the 60s, and so the 60s, you couldn't do a bad magazine in the 1960s. It was just too
many things were happening.
There were too many things. Too many things were at stake. It was all about young people. You had an amazing amount of talent writing for magazines. It was a period where the good writers weren't writing for TV or writing for the other places that draw them out now. And
almost everybody. I mean, whether Gloria Steinem and
Tom Wolfe
Jimmy Breslin and Tom Wolfe.
Absolutely, they were all there at the beginning. Yeah. And New York Magazine was very exciting. I've always wanted a
And
chance.
Clay was a great editor.
Clay was an
and
amazing
the right editor
editor
for the right place.
Absolutely. And I have always wanted to edit New York Magazine, and then I got the phone call, and I jumped at it.
When you got the phone call, you said yes. I know. I mean, whether you said yes or not, you knew.
I did, more or less. I mean, they gave me about 36 hours to think about it. I took those 36 hours, and And I was resisting it because I was loving the New York Times,
Right.
and
you on a pretty fast track there.
Yeah, although, I was really, it was after a difficult period. It was after the whole Hal Raines period, and I really felt that it was, sort of a bad time to leave. But they were fine. They didn't need me. And I felt that this was my one shot at editing a magazine that meant a whole lot to me, that I had competed against, and that I really felt had opportunities that we could.
What percentage of the people who buy New York Magazine are New Yorkers? 90% or?
No, it's we used to have 30% circulation outside of New York. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a fascinating piece. I mean, look at this. This to give you a sense of what we're talking about, because we're going to congratulate Adam on the magazine in terms of all these editorial magazine excellence things. Tony Soprano, the final analysis is about what happened in the last episode.
Actually, it's not just the last episode. We had someone Emily Nussbaum over the last several weeks watching every episode of The Sopranos through the entire run, and this is the analysis of the entire work of art and watching it change. It's a wonderful piece. Yeah.
Saying what about Sopranos?
Really, that in the final analysis, and there's a kind of mild, silly pun in that, the therapeutic relationship, which, at some level, one thought was a throwaway aspect of the show. In her reading of the show, it was all about that, and that we were the analysts, and Dr. Melfi was the proxy for us the entire time.
She was our surrogate.
She was our surrogate, and her rejection and her slamming the door was what, in some ways, he was taunting us to do. David Chase was taunting us to do the whole time.
All right, the study of Gaydar.
Gaydar.
The capacity to recognize gay.
Gay traits. Your index finger, if you're, there's research that says if your index finger is longer than your ring finger, that's an index of gayness. There's there's studies about the hair swirl, where, where your hair begins. Counterclockwise is gay, clockwise is straight. And it's about, it retells some of these great,
I saw Jay Leno just do a piece this week on that very thing about the index finger, and he was sort of fun with the audience. He said the recent study shows that if you index finger, if you get him, and then he looked to the audience because all these people saying,
and they're all going like
this. Exactly, right.
Well, it has fun with that, and then it talks about the idea of what does it mean, and and is it politically a good thing that we study things this way?
Concluding.
Concluding that it's kind of inevitable, and yet it's a scary thing that we should watch out for.
All right, Sidewalk. I'm getting to the cover story.
Sure.
Sidewalk Gourmet, a movable feast of New York street food. This is what we call a service component of the magazine.
It is, and it's absolutely at the core of what the magazine does. The magazine is about trying to extract the most you can get out of the city. We have rather excellent food experts, and this is, I think, a 14-page package which not only tells you what the best food courts are in New York City, but actually, goes into what is the life of there's an Egyptian kebab seller, goes through his day-to-day life.
And here's my point, though. I mean, this is a component of the magazine.
Right.
When you got there, you knew it. It was something you wanted to do. So the challenge is, how do you make it more interesting?
Right.
We also know that we live in the age of the Internet, and so therefore a lot of service features can be found on the Internet in multiplicity.
Right, and in our own site as well.
On your own site. In fact, you're competing with your own site in part. So what do you do?
What do we do? Well, we do a bunch of things. We hire, great talent, great writing talent to, write stories that we feel can do what New York Magazine at its best always does, which is take you inside the room that you're otherwise not allowed in. It's, it is about, giving you privileged information and then telling you how to understand it. And that's true whether, you're talking about the boardrooms of Walmart, or a restaurant. It's true about service, and it's true, very much about politics and business and
Is it
fashion.
your judgment that that's why people mostly buy this magazine? the service component?
No, I don't think so. I think people buy it for all sorts of different reasons. I think the service, it does have a whole lot of hard information and authority in it, and that's great, and that's very important to us. But I think that, and that's why some people buy it, and then there's another strain of people who buy it for the literary journalism in it. And then I think most people buy it because they like the whole mix, because they, and they like, more importantly, something softer about the whole thing, which is that together it conveys a New York idea.
That's exactly right. It celebrates the idea of New York,
right?
And in all of its parts, in terms of its politics and its journalism and its media obsession,
which is not to say that it cheerleads, because it doesn't.
Worship of wealth and everything else.
Absolutely, it looks at it. New Yorkers are very skeptical, in some ways cynical people. It looks at it with, with a pretty hard eye. It's smart, it's fun. I hope we try to do all that, and we try to, in the end, give you a sense of why this is such a special, idiosyncratic, we think wonderful. Other people think,
city.
City.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you capture that? I mean, how do you either you were born here, you lived here, you worked here, you feel it or you don't feel it.
Right.
And if you don't feel it, you shouldn't be an editor.
Right.
But how do you capture it? How do you capture the tone, the temperament,
I think it's...
So that this is different from the previous New York magazine.
Yeah.
And this is different from another magazine.
Right. I think it's a lot... a magazine editor is really just a curator. It's about finding talent, and it's about picking the right talent who will communicate who sees the city in the way that you want the magazine to see the city, and the way in which you hope will meet the reader. And I think principally that's what we've done. We've hired David Edelstein as the movie critic, who looks at the world a certain way. We've hired Jerry Saltz as the art critic who looks at the world a certain way. Justin Davidson, just this week, Pulitzer Prize-winning critic from Newsday, just came on as classical music critic and the architecture critic.
Classical music critic, you got a new classical music critic.
We do.
Just when everybody thought that classical music didn't deserve a critic.
Absolutely, but it's important. It's underattended, but it's important. It's important to the city. At the same time, you hire writers, reporters who are very, Joe Hagan, who did this wonderful piece for us on the turmoil at the New York Times last year and about the turmoil at the 9/11 memorial, so that you're hitting it all these ways. You're hitting it culture, it's the cultural center and the cultural universe. You're hitting it from the from the service in terms of the food and the sort of goods culture. You're hitting it from the business side. We did this hedge fund, huge hedge fund piece, several weeks ago, which really tried to explain it in a way that people would ultimately understand.
Look at this, and then here you go. Because I'm coming back to all the stuff we're talking about, but this is an appropriate time. This is a hedge fund thing, behind the hedge. Isn't it time you stop pretending to understand what a hedge fund is? And we will tell you, in fact, what it is. Who's making billions and how their habits, their wives, their toys, ranking the smartest, the meanest, the best. Are they good or evil? We answer all these questions in this piece?
We do. I mean, it's we're trying to have a little fun with it, but yeah.
It is a phenomenon of our time. It is the capitalism phenomenon of our time.
It is. It is.
And
it is
extraordinary change in the dynamic of who owns business.
Absolutely. And also, its effect on the city itself has been enormous.
Because
of the
you got a lot of rich people.
Yeah, because of the amount of because of the amount of money that certain people now have, and the amount of envy other people have for those people who have a lot of money, and the ways in which the money trickles down and creates a luxury culture which pushes out a large group of people who have always been a part of the New York life. So the effect has been good and bad, and
and they're playing havoc with the art market and places like that because they just weighed in and they want it.
Right.
And they got the money to.
And they're relatively young and they're relatively inexperienced and all that stuff.
But in an interesting way, some of them are giving back too.
Oh, sure. It's also been
philanthropy we haven't seen before.
It's been great. It's the sort of money culture of New York is a very complicated ththing because in many ways it's been a very good thing for everybody. It's the parks are nicer, the hospitals are better funded, the libraries are better funded. In other ways, it's had a kind of effect on the city that is divisive. and that we grapple with all the time because we think it's New York's big story. Money is New York's big story right now, and the effect that it's having on the city.
And speaking of money, here's also money and culture. Is the mighty Steve Jobs due for a fall? John Heilemann.
Yep.
What's the story? This is on the newsstands as we speak.
It is. The story is a hard look at Steve Jobs.
As iPhone is around the corner.
As the iPhone is around the corner, and as he takes in some ways the fourth big risk of his career. Sort of betting the company to some extent on this new piece of very attractive, lovely technology. I mean, I want one.
I do too. Boy, do I want one.
In a business that he, has no experience in, and which there's a great deal of competition about. And
so how's he going to fall?
Well, he's going to fall.
Maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't say that he is going to fall. It does say that that he's taking, pretty great risks with the company because he's. There's a kind of confidence or arrogance, depending on how you look at it, to the way he does business.
And he may be vulnerable on the iPod side.
And that's absolutely right. That the music part of his business, which has really been so significant, is under attack in its own way because of changes in the sort of downloading industry.
Talk about for a second.
Right.
You won the National Book Award. You won these National Magazine Awards for design excellence. For what else?
Profile writing. Vanessa Gregoriadis.
You're right.
For a piece on Karl Lagerfeld.
Right.
We won for the practical information section of the magazine called The Strategist, and we won for a blog that we have called Show and Talk on our website.
If I look at these, this is the Warhol's Children. This is
about technology.
This is Michael Bloomberg. This is
about Jim Cramer by Jim
Cramer. This is Hedge Fund.
Hedge funds, right.
This is you particularly like this.
I love that story. That's a story by Emily Nussbaum, who wrote the Sopranos story, and it's about why people. It's about the generation gap over privacy and why kids are willing to put their entire lives, their naked lives, their every detail of their lives online, in a way that people like me, people our generation, don't understand. And the reason that she finds in it is that they don't have privacy is not a premium to them. We take it for granted, you and I, that that privacy is something that's very important, and cherish it. And for them, at least her argument is, privacy is just of little relevance.
Yeah.
They just see being out in
Everything's
the world
out
that
there,
way.
so that's the world I live in.
Exactly.
What do we make of? Design is important to you, has always been important to you,
I think
in your entire journalistic.
It has, and I think as the magazine world changes and as the web becomes a more important driver of businesses like ours, and in our case, it's very, very important. The visual, the tactile object that is a magazine is going to become more and more important. So for that reason, we have.
Tactile object.
In other words, why do you want to hold this thing? Why do you want to turn these pages? You want to turn these pages because it gives you a certain feeling.
Tell me about a magazine that comes out once a week and online, which is there 24 hours a day. Where is the strain competition? Where do they serve each other?
Well, they don't compete at all. We have mostly a completely different set of readers online than we do in the magazine itself. We get there are certain things that we do in the magazine that get a great deal of play on the web. We did something the other day called the Profit Calculator, which analyzed the profit of 20 New York businesses, from Macy's to Nobu restaurant to a cab driver's business to a crystal meth dealer. That, for some reason, maybe the crystal meth dealer, had this enormous life online. But that's an exception. Mostly, what our online traffic is about the sort of practical slicing and dicing that we can do in service, finding restaurants, finding stores, that kind of thing. It's also about we now we're putting up content every 10 minutes, responding to, as soon as Bloomberg announces that he's abandoning the Republican Party, we have something up in 10 minutes, and then we have something up again.
Something up in 10 minutes?
Absolutely.
You mean just an
announcement
of it, or just
Well, the first 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes. So first we just simply have an announcement. We tell the reader, hey, this just happened. Then we come back an hour later.
But are people reading the New York magazine online during the week?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're reading it.
I mean, my first instinct during the day
Right.
is to go, first of all, go to my Yahoo, for example.
Right.
I've got them all listed down. Or then I go to CNN, I'll go to Reuters, or I go to somebody that's in this sort of daily reporting.
Right.
But you have people that are looking at online.
We're hoping.
For
I mean,
what?
part
Why
of
are
it.
they looking for it?
They're looking for all sorts of reasons. They're looking because they're a food fanatic, and so they look at Grub Street. They look for, and we have food news and food business news all day long. They look at it. We have a site called Vulture, which is about it's culture. It's like it's what's happening in television and music and books and art, and we have that all day long. Then we have something called Daily Intelligencer, which is which is a more of a version of the magazine itself, and that has politics in it and parties and fashion gossip. and gossip and company news about law and business, etc.
If you were in the business of the intelligentsia, you can't wait until this magazine comes out.
No, and you wouldn't want to. I mean, and what we're doing, and increasingly what we're doing, is trying to train readers to come back to us 2 and 3 times a day.
And how much of a revenue generator is that because of the advertisement move to the internet?
Enormous.
Really?
It is. We have phenomenal advertising demand for our website. We have to keep inventing new content in order to serve. We don't have to. We're not running after.
You got advertisers lining up, and you got to figure out something they can.
So we're just trying to invent new content all the time, and it's a great exciting thing going on over there. I mean, I'm not the first person to say it. No. But from our point of view, or from my point of view, having been in this business quite a long time, to have the opportunity to speak, tell stories in video, tell stories in animation, tell stories immediately, come back to them again 20 minutes later, come back to them. I mean, take the Bloomberg situation. We do a story in October, I think.
Right.
What was the date on that?
December 11th.
December, okay. In which we basically say that he's serious about running for mayor, so that's predictive.
Running for president.
Running for president. Sorry, that we said that's predictive. Then it actually, he does this coy little move. Right. In which he becomes an independent. We have a first response. We have another response maybe 2 hours later in which we have our first analysis. We have something in the magazine coming out Monday that's a longer response to that. Right. All of these ways are ways we circle
and online
the story.
You can link to previous articles.
Absolutely. And to everyone else. And you link out. Because what you're doing really is...
Link to the New York Times? Or
you do. Sure, you link to the New York Times. You link to all sort of interesting commentary that you edit. It's all still part of the editing function. Right. You look at all of this.
Do you edit this? You have a separate group of editors who edit online.
Yeah, no, we have a separate group. Although there are some writers. For example, the person who did all of that 360 on Bloomberg is not that, which is John Heilemann, but the other is Chris Smith, who writes our City Politic column and is a kind of Bloomberg expert.
All right, let me just ask this. The revenue from online advertising versus the revenue from...
from the paper product.
Yeah.
The revenue from the paper product is still larger than the revenue from online, but not the growth rate. The growth rate online is phenomenal. Yeah. And the growth rate on the magazine is good. And so it's a very healthy business. But if you look at where the business is going to be in 5 and 10 years, you have to see if things continue to go the way they are, the website will be certainly the bigger revenue driver.
And so what happens then?
I think that the magazine is necessary to support the website. The magazine is the mothership of the brand. Yeah. I hate talking in those terms as a journalist, but it is kind of true. And so we will continue to publish. We will continue to publish the magazine. We'll continue to invest in it, and at the same time that we'll have a website that speaks in a completely different voice. I mean, the elements are shorter, but they're no less smart. It's probably a little funnier because it has to be because of that form. Right. You can use, as I say, video and it's talking pictures. It's the beginning of television. It's great.
Let me ask the whole bunch of things that come up out of all this, one, which is, what do you know about what your readers want, and what do you know about their age, and what do you know about
we do the ordinary surveys about this sort of thing. Yeah. Frankly, they don't tell you a whole lot. Really? You really have to go by instinct mostly. What's interesting?
Groups? Do you do focus groups?
Every once in a while, and they tell you just about pretty much exactly what you think. The difference is online, because online because the technology is so sophisticated, every single thing that they click on. You know where they have come from to click on this. That they go from this story to that story, and the temptation, because we're all we like to do what pleases others, is to just give them more and more of what they want. And to some extent, you ought to do that. It's a little bit like television and ratings and all of that sort of thing. But journalists aren't used to that. You don't have that kind of instant response.
Exactly.
I mean, some things like a celebrity magazine has newsstand sales that they use as directives, and they know that Nicole Richie sells or doesn't sell or something like that. But the dilemma for a journalist is to take all this really finely detailed information about what its users actually want and decide how much of it to actually use. How much of it is good for the website as an organism in the long run, and how much is it just going to get a sort of short-term hits.
Is this magazine, as you do it, the magazine that you would be producing, editing, creating, if you didn't have to meet a set of commercial considerations? Is there anything that you would not be doing that's in the magazine just for commercial considerations? And are you not doing stuff that your editorial heart would love to do, but you can't because it just is not interesting to a large
people.
Group of people?
Sure.
What is that trade-off?
I don't think there are so many things that we do that we do just because there are certainly things in the magazine that interest me less than other things in the magazine.
Well, what would that be?
My interest in shopping is actually relatively small personally, but a lot of our readers,
sociology and all that kind of stuff.
I'm into that, and I'm
like
into
trends
looking
and all that.
I actually am, and I think one of the things I've tried to do is to make our trend reporting actually real, and it's not it's not fake, and it's not three people and you can write a trend story around that. And we've been very rigorous about when we go out there and say something's happening, that we have actual evidence, or as much evidence as you can have for something like this. And there are certain things you don't do because really the audience for them is very small.
What's that?
It's really it's a lot of journalism about the underclass. That actually I think we should do a whole lot more of, and we plan to do a whole lot more of. But we are aware going in that publishing that stuff will have a smaller audience.
And you also know the demand that you got to make it more creative. Even
Absolutely.
Because of the nature of the subject matter, you got to be even more creative about how you write it and present it.
Right, and we have done some wonderful stories that I'm extremely proud of. We did this story called David and His 28 Roommates about one immigrant who was living with 28 people.
Okay. Sex. Is it still what sells the most?
Sex and real estate, I'd say.
Sex and real estate?
Sure.
Why are we
it's
so
New
obsessed
York,
by
right?
real estate? Is it just us? There's real estate in Chicago and real estate in L.A.?
I think they're obsessed with real estate there, too. Not as much as here. It's so, we live in the relatively small space. And real estate, one of the things in the profit calculator that I described before is that, how many businesses succeed or fail based on, when they sign their lease and what their rent is. Rent drives everything. And it's so much a part, our housing is such a huge part of our equity and our wealth, and or a lack of. And if you're priced out of the market, you're in a state of rage. I mean, we do, I think, have a whole generation in New York who's in a state of rage about their relationship to the to wealth and to housing wealth, et cetera. Oh my God, yes. So that when we do a real estate cover, it does pretty well.
Is this the magazine you had inside of you, or is there another magazine that's in there dying to get out?
Well, this is my third magazine. I don't know how many I have left.
That's my point.
It's a magazine I love. It's a magazine. I love the weekliness of it.
You do.
But one is always aware at this point, what you could do if you had 2 and 3 and 4 more weeks to work on something. I envy some of my colleagues who have longer to work on these things. That's the nature of New York Magazine, that you do it, you slap it down. But that's also a wonderful thing, because that you're not precious about it. You're willing to make all sorts of mistakes, and you can change the menu all the time. That cover over there is a cover about cancer.
Yeah, it's great. Everyone on this cover, it says everyone on this cover is living with cancer. the survivor monologues, life after diagnosis.
And it's a series of very emotional and real stories about people with cancer. You know, this is a story right here about the Heilemann and about how the Heilemann functions as a how it turned from a park to a brand that actually organizes.
For those of you who don't know, is an elevated railroad that had been abandoned, and some people in New York made it into something very, very special.
And has become a magnet for development. Has become and has organized a rock festival around it. Yes, right. And it's become a brand, like everything in New York does. The cover line there says it represents everything you love and hate about New York. I love having the range that we have at the magazine. You know, from politics to art to, you know, to real estate to sex to, you know, to business.
Where do you think you're failing?
You know, I think that we're inconsistent. I wish we were stronger more of the time. I think we could stand. We could stand to be a little less careful. Sometimes we are a little careful.
Probably those who are critical would say that they'd love for you to be less.
Yeah, and they do, and you know, we're conscious. I'm personally very conscious of you know, the extent to which you know, I come from the New York Times, and the New York Times is very careful.
Right.
And I am very. I get very obsessed with making sure that that we're not out there, you know, too far in front of something if we don't know what we're talking about. I'm very deliberate about making sure that we know what we're talking about.
That you don't get too far ahead?
That we don't get too far ahead. We don't get too far out there where we're at a level of inexpertise. And you know, perhaps because of that's kind of more inhibiting than sometimes in retrospect I wish.
Are you making money?
We are, you know, we're making money on the web. The print magazine is a, you know, a little bit more of a we're in an investment period.
Sales are
pretty good.
Or up?
No, sales are great. I mean, really, it's a
subscription is down.
No, subscriptions are way up.
Since you took over, or
since we took over, since Bruce Wasserstein bought the magazine, subscriptions are up. You know, newsstand is up. Renewals are up. All those things.
What's not up?
Well, I'm not talking really about the circulation so much. What I'm really talking about, the revenue is way up.
Right.
What I'm talking about is that we've also met that with a great level of investment. Mm-hmm. So what's not up is profit.
Well, it's important. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. 5
awards from the International Magazine Awards. Is that what they call it?
That's what they call it.
Adam Moss is the editor of New York Magazine. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.